it's huge in France. Since the Weinstein case launched the MeToo movement around the world, it's been stalled in France, and this would be the first case of a megastar, a very big star, going facing actual trial. So there was a lot of people there yesterday. There were protesters. The courtroom was packed. They had an overflow room also, packed with journalists, but also with supporters of the women and other actresses who have accused Mr. Depardieu of sexual harassment, assault, and rape. And there was a lot of disappointment that it's been delayed for 6 months.
Yeah, as you mentioned, that delay, well, will that have any sort of impact on the actual legal proceedings?
It really depends. I mean, everyone's hoping he shows up. His lawyers produced two medical documents from two different doctors saying that he was unable to stand trial. He's had diabetes for 25 years. The man is 75 years old. And he's no longer managing it well. He has heart problems. There was just a huge list of problems, them saying that he needs to prove that he's healthy enough to stand trial. They have decided to, instead of just having the trial in one day, to make it 2 days so he can come. And everyone, including the defendants, are really hoping that he will show up. So we'll see what happens over the next 6 months.
And Catherine, what can you tell us about the weight of evidence that is stacked up against Gérard Depardieu?
Well, this is one of many. This is one case of many that have been filed before police. It's the first one to come to trial, which is why it's such a big deal. In the front row of the courtroom was a young woman, a young actress who has charged him with rape and not just sexual assault. Her case is still pending. We're waiting to hear when that will hit trial, but the prosecutors have asked for it to go to criminal trial. In this case, he has two women that were working on the set of one of his latest films called The Green Shutters, Les Volets Verts, that say that he grabbed them, touched them, tried to pin one of them down, grabbed her breasts, her buttocks, and made very lewd comments. The case says that she has 3 witnesses of this. And then the other is a young assistant director who, on the walk to the set each day, say that 3 times he grabbed her inappropriately. There's enough evidence that it was very swift. It's come to court. Usually these cases take a long time. It's just months after they complained to police that we're in court. It's the first time. So, there's obviously enough evidence or witnesses to this to bring it to court. But it's by no means the most serious charges that he faces.
And what do you think will be the focus of the actor's defense team?
Oh, we had a little amuse-bouche of it yesterday. He said that these women have pseudo allegations, that they've made it all up, that the police investigation was corrupt itself, that they ignored a huge number of witnesses that were in the room that said nothing happened. He said that the women are out for money. Interestingly, they've only, according to him, are looking for 6,000 to 30,000 euros for compensation for work, time off work. This is not a huge amount of money by any stretch. 30, even at the top, 30,000 euros. It seemed like a pretty weak argument to me, but it's a classic argument that it's a false claim. They're out for fame, they're out for money. And he has long said of all the accusations against him that he is innocent, that people are after him because of his fame, and that he is someone who tests the boundaries of vulgarity, who likes to play the buffoon, but he's never touched someone or meant any harm to anybody, and he's definitely never raped anybody. So this will be the first time that he will be tested in court. That it's not just a war of words in media, and I think that's really important to a lot of people. They're waiting for this case to go ahead to see if the MeToo movement in France goes past the media sphere.
And on that presumption of innocence, we had the French President Emmanuel Macron saying that this was a manhunt targeting a towering actor. Those were his words, who makes France proud. What do you make of what the president had to say there?
Yeah, that was quite shocking to a lot of people. Now, to put that in context, he was speaking about a documentary that came out, was aired last December, in which the documentary maker got footage of film when Mr. Depardieu was in North Korea visiting, and he was captured making very vulgar comments to his translator, but also to a really young prepubescent girl who was going by on a horse. He was watching her ride a horse and was making very vulgar comments about her. And there was a huge reaction in France that people thought like it was almost a window onto evidence of some of the vulgarity that he's been accused of. And there was a huge reaction in the country, particularly around his words of this little girl. So Macron came out and defended him within that context. Whether he would do that now, this many months later, I'm not sure, but it just shows in a way what a towering figure Depardieu is, and also how the debate around Me Too in France has not necessarily moved that much. There's a real sense that this is import from the United States with its puritanical mores, and that France should be set apart. That is a country where, of romance, of dragging women is part of the culture, and particularly around film. There is this real status of a director and filmmakers here as artists that are idolized and part of the fabric of the culture and what makes France France. And I think we could analyze his remarks with that lens, that he's coming to bat for an essential part of French culture. Again, there was big backlash, and many of the signs yesterday that were held up at protests were saying, no, he does not make France proud, echoing Macron's very words.
And just briefly on the Me Too movement, of course, all of this is happening against the backdrop of this mass rape trial of Dominique Pellicot and the horrific things he's been accused of doing to his now ex-wife Giselle Pellicot. How does that feed into that, the Me Too movement in France?
I mean, definitely there is a lot of talk right now about rape, about sexual assault, about consent. So we really, there's not really a day that goes by that the newspapers aren't reporting on the Pellicot trial. And so it comes at a really different time of the national discussion around these issues. Depardieu is not the first, he's the first big star to be tried, but there are other cases that are coming up within the next months. So I think that there's kind of a drumbeat. It's been very interesting to be here and cover the trial of Mr. Pellicot and 50 other men, to see the discussion in the country and how it's changing, how more and more men are coming out and talking about changes that need to be made within the culture, discussions about change to education that need to be made, structural changes. I feel it's been really interesting because you can sense the ground shifting. And this trial in the south of France is going on. It's only halfway through. We're only partway through. So I think it's had an enormous impact on and opened people's eyes to what we're hearing more and more in the French press as rape culture in France.
Okay, we'll see what happens when the trial hopefully resumes in March. Catherine Porter in Paris, thanks very much.
Very welcome.